for you, Mr. Yoon. You talk about more efficiency in city government, but the question is, who's watching over the bloat, if you will, at City Hall? Is it the city councilors? You happen to be one of them. And all of you, the city councilors, not you guys, you make more money than our state lawmakers. So there's obviously room for savings. You can cut budgets, you can cut expenses, yet that's not happening. I want to know, Mr. Yoon, what you've done to reduce costs, not what you've proposed, what you've done. As a city councilor.
Sure, as a city councilor, what this cuts to the heart of what I think this election is really about, which is about whether we want to continue a system of doing things in city government, like budgeting, that stays in the hands of a single person, i.e. the mayor. Because when the mayor has that much power and control over information, over resources, over the budget process, it makes it so the city council doesn't play the check and balance role that it's really supposed to play. And I think if we're going to change that in our city, we have to have the courage this year to say that that system doesn't work. As far as what I've done, Maria, as far as what I've done is, you know, this past year, in this past budget season, I brought out to the community an agenda to save $74 million worth of savings to be realized in our budget every year, not just this year, but every year. The Boston Finance Commission is a taxpayer-funded watchdog agency that identifies wasteful spending. They published a report. I was concerned that this report would just gather dust on a shelf. But they've identified $74 million worth of savings if we simply do basic management reforms. I took it out to the neighborhood. We had a conversation in Codman Square, and that public meeting that I brought out was basically shut down by the mayor's office. And this is my attempt to bring fiscal responsibility to our city. It was done at the beginning of the budget season, and it was pretty much squashed. And this is my concern about the way we do business in the city. 1 second,
Mayor, I know you want to answer that. Mr. Flaherty, as a city councilor yourself?
Things I haven't done, Maria, is I didn't vote for this year's budget because it didn't eliminate wasteful spending. We haven't put forward a plan to collect the $66 million that is owed to the taxpayers from unpaid parking fines. It didn't eliminate overpaid consultants that permeate the city payrolls. And so those are things that I felt very important with respect to this budget that needed to be addressed, and it wasn't. And so it's also why I didn't support the Menino's Meals Pacts, because the simple reason is that we cannot tax our way out of the down economy. We need to find ways to eliminate wasteful spending. That's going to come with performance review. As mayor of Boston, I intend to put performance review in action here in Boston, along with a tracking system. Again, department by department, line item by line item. Let's identify the waste. Let's find where we could be more efficient and use the cost savings to fund very critical programs that got cut in this tough budget.
Is there waste at City Hall, Mayor?
You know, we've cut the budget pretty well over the last few years because of the financial situation we're in. This budget has been cut the first time in 15 years. We have a smaller budget we had previously. And that's because on the growth side. But let me just tell you, the council has power over the budget. They can cut it. And I just want to make that perfectly clear here.
Well, let me just interrupt you there, because Mr. Yoon obviously has an issue with what you just said.
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's hear it.
This is about restoring basic checks and balances in the budget. Here's the genuine, honest truth of how it works. The mayor controls constituent services, and this is a time for honesty. If there's ever a time in Boston in an election where we have to be honest with each other and with you, the community, we have to understand how it really works. The mayor controls constituent services. City councilors depend on constituent services in order to keep getting reelected. And when the mayor says, I want you to deliver a budget to me, or else I'm going to turn the spigot off on constituent services, then it forces the whole budget process to be a dog and pony show. That's all it is. And what I'm trying to say is that we have a choice to make on September 22nd as to whether we fix a broken system, or whether we want to continue a system in which waste, fraud, and abuse continues to go unabated because the city council doesn't have the power, both politically and in terms of on paper, in order to make a difference and really be a check and balance.
I know, Mr. McCrae, you have something to say about this, for sure.
I've got a lot to say about this issue.
Let's hear a bit.
It's exactly right. We have two city councilors who are here running because they say that the city council has no power. Well, this job that has no power, they've increased the salary for it in the last 4 years by about 20%. They've increased central staff at City Council by 8.5% in a backroom deal to hire someone to write a report on how they can evade the open meeting law and keep the city residents out of the decision-making process. In the last 10 years, the city budget has gone up by about 50%, while the cost of living has gone up by 25%. The rate of increase in the city budget is going up twice the rate of inflation. That's unsustainable. Councillor Flaherty says that he voted against the budget this year, after he voted for it the last 9 years in a row as it went up and up and up and up and up. And this year, which is essentially level budget from last year over this year, now he votes against it and says that it's because we haven't squeezed the waste out of it.
And you say what to that, Mr. Flaherty?
Say that this was a completely different budget this year, where we were closing schools, laying off city employees, talking about laying off police officers and closing fire stations. There's real pain out there across the city of Boston. I've sat at kitchen tables across our city in all of the neighborhoods, tables just like this, and have listened to residents of our city who are concerned about the need to have prudent responsibility around management to eliminate wasteful spending. And again, I point to the $66 million that's owed to the taxpayers and uncollected parking fines as one small area where you're going to generate $66 million.
So we cut it more or less?
And also, Maria, talk about health care costs for city employees have risen 92% from 2001 to 2007.
Well, how about Mr.
On
McCrae's
pace to
question?
bankrupt the city of Boston with respect to the need to get our health employees onto our employees onto the GIC and retirees onto Medicare.
How about that? Would you cut it more or less?
Oh, it has to be cut more. My government would be smaller under a Flaherty administration. The Menino administration has actually grown city government. We can no longer sustain that growth because of the fixed costs.
And you voted for it every year until now.
Marie.
I want to clarify that my voting record on the budget, just to put it on the record, I voted 4 times against the budget during my 4 years. And the reason it comes down to, again, this way of doing budgeting where it's all an insider's game.
Right.
It's all an insider's game. And what I did my first year, because I realized this is the most important thing that the city council does, is I went to 10 different neighborhoods and brought the neighborhood out to communities and people. And by the way, that's the way it's done in other cities. In Philadelphia, Mayor Michael Nutter has gone out and spoken to 1,000 Philadelphia residents this year to educate him and get feedback for him to make these decisions. In Seattle, they have an actual budget process management team. I mean, they literally produce something so that communities and neighbors can all have a debate about how to spend their taxpayer money. That's something that we need to do in Boston, but if we're going to continue with this one single person controlling everything, all the information, all the resources, then we're never going to get there, and that's what's at stake in this election.
And you're saying that one person is Mr. Menino?
Exactly.
And you
First
say
of all,
what, Mr. Menino?
Marie, let me just say, an outside agency like the rating agencies, they've rated our books and say we're well managed financially. We have the highest bond rate we have. That talks about the financial situation. Now let's talk about the city council if you want. The city council has the power to reduce our budget. I was a city councilor one day. I had a budget, and I went out to the community with mine. You weren't the first one, Sam. I was out there many years before you were. And the mayor supported a budget on the library. It was underfunded. I said, dead on arrival, the mayor had to resubmit it. That hasn't happened. And we're going to continue. The councilors who spent a lot of time in these meetings, I give them respect, but they spent time in City Hall dealing with this budget. I have to give them, councilors, a lot of credit for voting on a tough budget that deals with the issues of the people in the neighborhoods of Boston.
Those Wall Street ratings, Maria, I have to say, this really it upsets me when I hear that, because these are Wall Street bond rating agencies. You know who they report to? Wall Street. Not to the people of the city of Boston. I don't care how well we do in terms of our bond ratings, because what matters is the value that taxpayers and residents get, and we don't communicate with our city in a way that we ought to every single year.
You know what? Let's move.
Okay, we got to move.
We saved $30 million because of our bond rating. $30 million when we refinanced our bonds. That's pretty good money.
Marie, I'd like
We've
to
also
finish up with something.
seen school transportation costs spiral out of control to the tune of close to $80 million. I dropped my kids off today, first day of school, and bus after bus after bus with 3, 4, 7 kids. I'll concede maybe it was the first day of school, but I'll go back there with you, Maria, next week, and we'll see how many of those buses are half empty, colossal waste of resources, precious tax dollars that need to go to the classroom for teaching and learning.
Okay.
30 seconds. You let the politicians talk. Please let me
Mr.
talk.
McCrae.
Every year, when the city budget comes out, they predict what the next year's budget's going to be. Last year, they predicted that this year we are going to be facing a $20 to $30 million budget deficit. Facing that deficit, what did they do? Menino gave raises to all his chiefs of staff, retroactive 1 year, and the city council gave all their staff not bonuses, pay increases. That's not fiscal responsibility.
Let's stick with Mr. McCray. You've criticized the